Coming up on Talk is Cheap, we look at the Green Children of Woolpit. We're these guys from the inner earth. Stay tuned on Talk is Cheap. Welcome to Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk and talk is cheap. I'm your host, Dan Hohlfeld. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And to my left is none other than Mr. Pete Halbleib.
Good evening, Dano, and Planet Earth and beyond. How are we doing tonight, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I can say.
Hey, dude, check it out. You have this fancy soundboard over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get to hit all these cool buttons. I've got one sound effect that I'm going to be working with tonight.
You have one, though.
I have one, and here we go. And it can be super, super annoying.
Think you can handle that?
Oh, so you hold it. So that's how you actually have to hold it.
Yeah, I have to hold it together. Yeah, so anyway,
cool.
That's my air horn app on my phone. Free app, pretty cool. You can annoy coworkers with it.
Of course.
In the middle of the night,
Why wouldn't you?
You announce your presence into a room with it. It's great.
Joining us from Georgia, Savannah, Tim. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What's going on, guys?
Pretty good. Good to see you again. You joined us. You did the live stream the other week, and returning again for another show. As always, we got a nice looking shirt there on too.
Bam,
Red Dan straight. Nice.
I think I've seen that somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, don't we have
what, 1 week, $20 or whatever? Everybody should buy one and show some support.
That is. Yeah, the disclosure now. That I never seen it in blue. You bought it in the blue version there. That's pretty cool.
The blue's good. It fits good.
Oop, that's the other one.
It's a quality T-shirt too, right? It's not a chintzy thin one, you know.
No. It washed perfect. It fits perfectly. So just whatever your size is, that's what they do. I don't know who you guys get to make them, but they did a fantastic job.
And it's like actually good quality. It doesn't really fade that quick. Mine's still hanging in there together.
Yeah. The one that you rejected due to quality that I have is still holding up okay. Although you can tell it is getting a little more beat up.
You were wearing that one at East City. Was anybody asking you about it?
No, no, unfortunately not. They made more. They made more comments about the T-shirt I'm wearing now with the Sasquatch on the milk jug.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, missing.
It is a good shirt though.
It's kind of cool. My brother gave it to me for Christmas or my birthday or something.
I still like the Halbleib's produce, dude. That's my favorite.
Oh, yeah, right. That's awesome. Yep. I'll tell you, man. Up here right now, it is the produce season's winding down, but boy, I am up to my ears in tomatoes and stuff. So it's good. It's good salsa making weather, you know.
Yeah, we got rosemary. We got a little garden. My
nice.
Tomatoes are doing not well. I don't know why. They're not growing.
Yeah.
Peppers are doing great. Rosemary's doing awesome for years, but tomatoes.
I found just season to season tomatoes can vary, and if you start dealing with the blight stuff, it's just a pain in the butt.
Also, small seasoned curlies.
Ooh, yes, seasoned curlies. No onions, right?
No onions.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we're actually a little low on voicemail. So if you please want to call in and leave a voicemail, got a topic suggestions, just say hi. We can air those on the show as well here, folks. Do not be afraid to do so. That's 1-256-510-K2D4, 1-256-510-5234, and we can get it up on the air for you and hear from you, because we want to make sure that we're being heard, that people are enjoying the show, because with the YouTube censorship, you kind of wonder if it's worth it anymore.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
It gets a little discouraging. And just a suggestion for the topic suggestions, provide as much detail as you can, because we're going through the topic list. There's been a couple out there, and the topics that are being suggested, I don't know what's going on. I can't find any information on some of them. So
there's a couple. Yeah,
just a couple. So you provide some details. Drop a link.
Link is really good.
Yeah, just to get us started, man. Because it's like some of the stuff. It sounded interesting, but it's like if you can't find a lick on it anywhere. it's tough to do a show on it, but we're getting through them. We're pounding through a lot of these. It takes a while sometimes, but we like to hear what the viewers want to see, and so we're going to try to keep doing that.
Absolutely. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to get into today's topic. This is the Green Children of Woolpit. This was suggested by none other than Manny. Manny.
Good time, Manny.
Oh, yeah.
Suggesting the Green Children.
So, yeah, right off the bat, it kind of struck me like, what the hell is this? This is actually a pretty quick topic. So feel free, both of you, to chime in and ask some questions as we go through it, because it'll go really quick.
It's interesting because I wouldn't say I'm quite familiar with this topic, but I'm somewhat familiar with this topic, so I'll be interested to hear which direction you're taking it, and may have some things to add myself.
Right. So, okay, Woolpit.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where the hell is Woolpit?
Is a village in Suffolk, England, and as of 2007, had a population of... And I'm getting a call from none other than Mr. Joe.
Oh, Joe. Good time, Joe Rock calling.
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So in 2007, had a population of 2,030. Pretty crazy. Like we're not talking about like a big village, but it is. I guess it's bigger than our village down here.
Yeah.
So it's decent size, and that was 2007. So according to William of Newburgh, he was a historian and canon. He wrote an account of. He wrote this account in his book, was Historia Recum. You got to help me with the pronunciation on this, Pete. Historia Recum Anglicarium.
Historia Rerum Anglicarum. Yep. So History of English Affairs, it means.
This is what it translates to, and that is Latin. So this whole account took place with these green children in the 12th century. We're talking 1135 to 1154. During the reign of King Stephen. It was during the time of harvest. The villagers had discovered two children, a brother and sister, beside a wolf trapping pit. Now, people don't know what a wolf trapping pit is. They'll just have a pit dug into the ground. A lot of them actually, they bricked in around it. So they'll just go along and then they'll fall in there. I suppose you can cover it with brush or foliage or whatever so they don't see it. Fall in there, and then they got the meal there. Nice trapping pit, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
So they found these kids next to this pit, and they spoke an unknown language. Their clothing was unfamiliar, and they were taken to the home of Richard de Calne. They refused all food for several days. They ate raw beans eventually, because they refused food for the longest time. They gave them raw beans. They said, all right, we'll have that. They consumed these eagerly, and then later adopted to normal food. Eventually, they did lose their green skin hue that it had, this is the whole interesting part of this, I think, is out of the ordinary, is you got that green skin hue on it. And it's like, well, that's kind of weird off the bat. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they lost that after eating correctly, changing their diet. The boy was the younger of the two, and then he became sick and died shortly after he and his sister were baptized. Eventually...
Of the corn?
Children of the Corn?
Yeah, a kind of Children of the Wolf Pit, think of it, I guess, so far.
Yeah, the wolf pits, I watched a couple of videos, and the little wolf pits that's some weird times back then.
Well, think about it, 12th century, think of where medicine was, where, just modern technology of the time, and there was, they were still burning witches and stuff back then, so
yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Correct.
I would want to add, Dan, too,
Sure.
and you had mentioned that William of Newburgh had an account of this in his book, The History of English Affairs.
Yes.
It was also documented in another guy's chronicles, Ralph of Coggestall's work on Chronicon Anglicanum, which is the English chronicle as well. So there's two 12th century religious historians that documented this case. It didn't just appear, in one excerpt. So two separate people talked to these children.
We bring up a good point, because I found this too. I'm going to show this. So back to William of Newburgh, he didn't write that Historia Recum, however you want to pronounce it.
Historia Rerum Anglicarum.
Thank you. You can pronounce it pretty good. Until 1196, which was 40 years after the fact. So we got a little gap there, and you know how in the English language things can change. He was by no means an eyewitness, nor did he see any physical evidence of the event. The green girl, if she existed, had apparently already passed away before William looked into the matter. So that's important to note there. He did write it, but he was taking this account from other people, sources in the area, if you will. So back to the story. His sister finally began to speak English, the green girl, the sister there. And then she finally was able to explain what happened. So they came from a land where the sun never shone and like it was twilight. And they actually called the home St. Martin's Land. Everything there was green. The children were unable to account for their arrival. So what they said in their account was they were herding their father's cattle. They followed the cattle into a cave and they heard a loud noise like bells. And you could say it was the city of Woolpit. And they heard those bells. It guided them to the city area. And then suddenly they were by the wolf pit there. The girl was employed as a servant in Richard D. Colney's household. For many years, she was cruel and disrespectful and eventually married a royal official, Richard Barry. So that's basically the story.
Like,
in a
where did these
nutshell.
kids come from? Like, that's my question. Where did these kids come from? They just showed up in this
Exactly.
book?
So this is the speculations that people are drawing. So some of the people are saying that one of the accounts could be that there were orphans from
Flemish orphans is the one that is my understanding. And when you finish up, Dan, I do have a couple comments to add and a couple kind of pieces to this puzzle I think we can throw back in.
one account is that there were Flemish orphans from Forhan St. Martin. That's interesting because she said when she translated
It's the land of St.
St. Martin's Land.
Yep.
So that's right there could have been, okay, then, she was younger, didn't know what was going on. And they said that she was, could have been suffering from hypochromic anemia. The diet's bad, changes the skin color.
Witchcraft involved?
Not that we've seen, although some folks have obviously have speculated that over the years. But Dan, to your point, the medical explanation that people, when they look back, say that it is hypochromic anemia, which is historically known as chlorosis. And it's also known as green sickness, right? Because your red blood cells fade, you appear green. And they say this is why the children eventually lost their green hue as they started getting fed. What's interesting, Dan, is that depending on what account you read, some people think this entire thing took place under King Stephen. Other people think it took place under Henry II. So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a time gap. And also, there's supposedly the girl, the sister, supposedly married and this is the Henry II account, married an ambassador of Henry II and took on the name of Agnes Barr. Now, when I did look in English,
yeah, that's the Richard Barr she married then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
what I
Yeah.
had.
Eventually, I'm sorry, I missed that. Now, when I look up Agnes Barr back in the English genealogy, I find one that dies in like 1274, which is a little bit after these accounts. So I'm not sure that's the same one, unfortunately. But what's really cool, Dan, is that I found a guy in 96, okay, by the name of Duncan Lunan. He's an astronomer. He's actually quite active. He's got podcasts out there where he talks about it. It's kind of cool. But here's his theory, that these two children were accidentally transported to Woolpit from their home planet somewhere that is trapped in a synchronous orbit around its sun. What that means is that it's not, like we rotate while we revolve around the sun, but this one is locked in kind of like the moon. And these people live in the narrow band of habitable environment on this planet between what's really hot from the sun and what's freezing cold that's not getting the sun. But he's still active and out there, and there's like a cool podcast where he talks about this. He talks about the Black Knight satellite, which we've talked about on here before. So, even modern day, this guy's, this is still being discussed with some pretty interesting theories also.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that he just said that there were, because the extraterrestrial thing, it's like, well, somebody dropped him off and
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know I believe that one. Actually, that's the first one sounds more like if they came from that crazy hospital or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I could see that. You got two young children. If they maybe grew up in the forest, not seeing the sun. Personally, Dan, I lean toward like could be medically explained today, but in the 12th century, they couldn't do it because there was still some pretty crazy stuff being believed back in the 12th century. I think the fact that if they were Flemish, it was pointed out in some of the research I did that the folks in Woolpit would not recognize their language. Their clothing would appear different to them. And of course, if they're green, that adds a whole new mix. And what's difficult is that you only have like a couple accounts. Now, I was able to find an actual copy online of what was it called? The Chronicon Anglicanum, and where in the preface it does reference the stories. And what's funny about this too is that Ralph of Cogglestoll, he also talked about several other things. And page 11 is what we want to get to there, Dano.
This is a long read, though. We're talking 500 pages of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, not page 11. Yeah, oh, yeah, and it's all in Latin, by the way, so good luck with that. So I did, in the preface, which was written in English, I did find references to these stories, but when I flipped to the page, it was in Latin, and it was hopeless. So any viewers out there that can translate
There was
Latin?
no way to search it, because I tried searching, like doing a Control F.
No, not unless you know the Latin word.
Well, some of it was English.
Yeah, the preface was made, and then the preface, and then the.
But this is the way it is. It's like it's not sensing the individual text on it, so you can't pick letters inside of a search. But the last puzzle that this could possibly be is inner Earth beings.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about this. They're not seeing the sun. How's their skin going to be? It's probably going to be a little more gray, whitish. Living under there. Sounded like they, go through a little cave that could lead out to an opening of the outside of the earth there.
Yeah, because they supposedly went into a cave on one side and came out on the other.
Yeah. So it's, again, what we got here is just an interesting story. That's all we can do with it, really.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do. There's no real evidence. There's no obviously no photographs of these kids. We've got two accounts of it, written in a religious historical document. One of the accounts is highly suggested to be after they passed, they were long gone. The other one, it's just tough to tell with the timelines back then.
And the actual town is eating this up because they actually I have a sign here on screen. This is like in the city. They got the two green kids there.
Yeah.
And then the rest is black. So interesting. So again, it'll help for tourism, I guess. But what do you do? That's all there is. Thoughts, Tim?
I don't know. Are there any accounts of any modern day green children?
That's a good question. I never even thought of that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, this is I'm just kind of sitting back and listening to the story, but I mean, I haven't heard of any besides the Hulk.
Yeah, right. And that's gamma radiation.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't heard of any modern day kids that are green.
Evidence.
But if you bring up, what was that? What'd you say the disease was?
Chlorosis or hypochromic anemia.
So you'd think if you type this in that you would see somebody
hit
green,
images, and then you see
blood cells. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there you go.
So that's possible. I would say that's plausible.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something to chime in on these little green children.
Yeah, right.
What hospital possibly has had evidence of
Very interesting.
Anything of this nature recently?
That's what we're trying to find, and I don't see much,
Yeah.
Let me see.
I don't know. It might be old west still.
I think it's possible. It's like, you drink a bunch of carrot juice, you can turn orange, right? So your body can do that. It's got to do with your red blood cells fading and somehow appearing pale.
And then, I mean, listening to the story, it's like as they fed the kids, normal food, the green went away. So maybe it was
Yeah, which makes total sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
maybe the whole gangrene thing. Like maybe they're malnourished.
it's typically triggered by like terrible diet, starvation, etc., like that. So yeah, if these kids were eating like twigs and tree bark for years or whatever, and then they get they're in England, right? They get a good bangers and mash, if you will, diet.
That kind of goes back to if
around.
that's all they were eating. You know, I was doing the vegan thing for a while, but I lost like a ton of muscle mass. I went to vegetarian, and
Did you turn colors?
well, I was still eating other
It
stuff.
was not. It wasn't fun. I had a filet mignon. I went back eating.
Did you?
Yeah.
How long?
But
How
anyway,
long?
but I'm not doing a lot of red meat lately. We're doing a lot of salmon and rice, and it's way.
Salmon's delicious, but man, it's expensive in Wisconsin to get any good stuff.
It's cheap down here in Savannah. It's like $8 a pound. So
We're next to water.
yeah, but we're by the water.
Right.
Yeah, we made lots of rad recipes for salmon and rice, and we throw whatever's in the garden. You know, try to
Right
eat
on.
better. You know?
Well, you got the one coast that's not contaminated. That's what I will say.
Yeah, right.
And my Chinese dogs like the rice.
Yeah, we feed the leftover rice to the dogs, which is they can handle the white rice.
They like the white rice.
So green children. I
Yeah,
don't know what to say about it.
So Dano, where are you landing on this one, man? Not enough information.
I would lean towards the disease hyperchromic anemia.
Yeah, I'm
with
leaning towards
Mary's thing.
I'm leaning toward that too. I think that if there were this race of green people around, we would have more than one case. We would have more than one green children of Woolpit
And
incidents.
I've never heard like Corey Good or anything talk about green kids or any green race from the inner earth or whatever. But that was my first go-to when I heard, oh, they came from the inner earth. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But then, yeah, I guess it can be explained. So that's the important thing about this show. We got to be able to look at the facts and just make a decision and not go, oh, it's automatically paranormal.
Yeah, it's automatically alien or whatever. Yeah.
I think we're all in unison on this one. It might be chalked up to
Space Force.
that weird disease.
Yeah, right. I agree. Without any more information, and the fact, like I said, that we're not seeing a bunch of different cases of this kind of maybe lends to that something like that would be the explanation. So,
Again, folks, don't forget to leave a voicemail if you would like to join us on the thanks to Brad Beach.
yeah, right. It sucks when somebody hits sound effects in the middle of a sentence, doesn't it, Dan?
You guys want to be a part of the show? Leave us a voicemail, 1-256-510-5234, 1-256-510-K2D4. You can suggest a topic like this one. Very interesting stuff. Probably plausible. We don't have to say that it's always something crazy all the time. I mean, that's what the show's about. Ask questions, look at the facts, and we kind of decipher it on here. With that being said, thank you guys for joining me. Dan Hohlfeld here with Pete Halbleib.
And Timmy Savannah.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. Visit K2D4Network.com today.